It was a cold winter night, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes the world feel distant and lonely. Emily sat alone by the window, watching the snowflakes fall softly onto the silent streets below. Her heart was heavy, burdened with a pain she had carried for years, rejection from those who should have loved her most. Growing up, Emily had always felt like an outsider in her own family. Despite her efforts to connect, to belong, she was met with indifference and cold shoulders. Her adoptive parents, bound by tradition and rigid expectations, never truly accepted her as one of their own. Holidays, birthdays, celebrations, these were reminders of the invisible barrier between her and the people she longed to call family. But tonight something was different. As the festive lights flickered faintly in the distance, Emily's mind wandered back to the countless times she had tried to bridge the gap, to prove her worth. She remembered the whispered criticisms, the unspoken judgments, the subtle but relentless exclusion. It was as if she existed in a shadow, always close yet never seen. Yet in the midst of this silence there was a spark, a quiet strength growing within her. A voice, soft but unwavering, whispered that she was more than their rejection, that her worth was not defined by their approval. She looked down at the small photo in her hands, an image of herself as a child, smiling with innocence and hope. That little girl deserved to be heard, to be loved. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to finally stand up and speak her truth. With a deep breath, Emily rose from her chair. The weight on her chest began to lift as determination replaced despair. Tonight she would confront the past, not with anger but with courage. Her footsteps echoed through the quiet house as she prepared to face the family gathering. The moment was coming, the moment to break the silence, to claim her place, to rewrite the story that had been written for her. Because no matter how many times she had been cast aside, Emily knew one thing with certainty: she was not alone. She carried within her the power to change everything. The house was filled with the low murmur of voices, the clinking of glasses, and the faint scent of cinnamon and pine from the holiday decorations. Laughter echoed from the living room where the family gathered, unaware of the storm about to unfold. Emily stepped through the doorway, her heart pounding but her steps steady. All eyes turned toward her, some surprised, others wary. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Her adoptive mother, with a forced smile, was the first to speak. "Emily, you came," she said, her voice fragile, as if unsure how to navigate this unexpected arrival. Emily nodded. "Yes, I came. There's something I need to say." Her voice was calm but carried the weight of years spent silenced. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the people who had never truly seen her. Not really. "I've spent so many years trying to be someone I'm not, trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. I tried to be perfect, to earn your love, your approval. But I realized tonight that I don't need to beg for acceptance. I am enough as I am." The room grew quiet, the only sound the crackling of the fire in the hearth. Her father's face tightened, conflicted. Her younger sister looked away, unable to meet her gaze. But Emily didn't falter. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness or your pity. I'm asking for respect, for recognition that I'm a person worthy of love and kindness. I won't hide anymore. This is who I am." Tears welled in her mother's eyes, but no words came. Emily could see the walls she had built, the fears and regrets that kept her family trapped. Still, Emily felt a profound peace settling over her. For the first time, she was standing in her truth, unapologetic and free. She took a deep breath and added softly, "I hope someday you'll see me, not the shadow you've held onto, but the light I'm becoming." With that, she turned and walked away, her head held high. In that moment, Emily knew she had reclaimed her story. No longer a victim of rejection, but a warrior of her own life. Emily stepped out of the room, feeling the cool night air wrap around her face. The chill seemed to wash away the tension she'd carried for years, as if every breath was releasing the weight of silence and rejection. Outside, the Christmas lights glowed softly, a reflection of the hope now beating in her chest. Inside the house, the family remained in complete silence. Her mother's eyes, still moist, seemed caught between regret and sadness, a late recognition of the daughter who had always been there, waiting to be seen. Her father took a deep breath, trying to comprehend the courage he had just witnessed, but pride and stubbornness still held him back. Her younger sister, who had been avoiding Emily's gaze until then, finally lifted her eyes, wavering between confusion and admiration. Maybe in that moment a seed of empathy was planted, an invitation to rebuild what had been lost. Emily walked through the garden, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet. She knew it wouldn't be easy, that the family's wounds would need time to heal, but at that moment the certainty of her own dignity was a beacon lighting her path. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, almost like a promise, "I deserve to be truly loved. And maybe one day they'll learn to love me too." That Christmas night wouldn't shine with the brightness of perfect celebrations, but for Emily it was a rebirth, the first step toward a life where she would be the protagonist of her own story, free from the chains of the past. The days that followed were quieter than Emily had expected. The house seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for a sign that things would return to normal, or that they might finally change. Emily noticed the subtle shifts, her mother's lingering glances when she thought no one was watching, the hesitant hello from her sister in the kitchen, and even her father's softened tone during their brief conversations. It was as if the walls themselves were adjusting to a new truth, one they hadn't dared speak aloud before. Emily didn't push them. She knew healing required patience. Instead, she focused on rebuilding herself, piece by piece, strengthening the fragile confidence she had fought so hard to reclaim. She began journaling every evening, pouring out her thoughts and dreams, letting the words flow like a river, freeing her soul. With each page, she felt more connected to who she was, beyond the pain and the rejection. One afternoon, as Emily sat on the porch, her sister joined her quietly. There was an unspoken apology in her eyes, a tentative bridge extending between them. "I'm sorry for everything," her sister whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't understand before, but I want to." Emily smiled softly, the weight of years melting away in that moment of fragile connection. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means more than you know." From that day on, the small moments of kindness multiplied. A shared cup of tea, a genuine conversation, a laugh that came without pretense. The family wasn't perfect, and there were still hard days ahead, but the walls of silence and misunderstanding were beginning to crumble. Emily realized that sometimes love isn't about grand gestures or immediate acceptance. It's about the slow, steady willingness to see each other, flaws and all, and to keep trying, even when it hurts. As spring approached, the house felt lighter, filled with cautious hope. Emily looked out at the blossoming garden, a symbol of new beginnings, and felt ready to embrace whatever came next. Months passed, and Emily's world gradually transformed, not because everything suddenly became perfect, but because she and her family chose to grow through the imperfections. The walls that once kept her out slowly became the walls that held her in, safe and accepted. At a small family gathering one evening, surrounded by soft laughter and warm smiles, Emily stood and looked around the room. Her parents, her siblings, people who had once made her feel invisible, were now looking at her with new eyes. The same eyes that had once been filled with judgment were now filled with understanding. She took a deep breath and spoke, her voice steady but full of emotion. "Thank you for seeing me, for trying, for being here." Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "We love you, Emily. We always have." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, not of pain but of profound relief and joy. In that moment, she knew she had won more than acceptance. She had won belonging. Her journey wasn't about changing others. It was about finding the courage to stand tall in her truth and allowing love the chance to grow. As the night settled, Emily felt a quiet peace wrap around her like a warm embrace. The road ahead might still have bumps and shadows, but she was no longer walking it alone. She was home,